Hi folks, the Filipino bee here. And it always ticks me off when I hear someone say the Filipinas target foreigners, as if we sit in smoke-filled rooms at the end of the day, laughing about our kill counts and sharing developments in silencer technology. But at the same time, I can't deny that the accusation is also true. Sometimes. There are definitely Filipinas that go after foreigners with a specific objective in mind. They might portray themselves one way when their actual goal is something completely different. So today, I'm gonna peel a few layers of the onion, and maybe we'll find out it's not always what it looks like. Or maybe a Filipina has set her sights on you right now. So, do Filipinos target foreigners? Well, when you phrase the question that way, it's obvious you think you know the answer, because the word target has a sinister connotation. If you're targeting someone, chances are you don't have their best interests in mind. But what if we use the word pursue instead? Do Filipinos pursue foreigners? Not quite so sneaky sounding, is it? And yes, of course some Filipinos pursue foreigners for relationships, but that still has a shady feel to it, doesn't it? Now what if we use the word prefer? Do some Filipinos prefer foreigners? Well heck, now it sounds completely reasonable. So maybe it's just the way you phrase it. If I said that some men target women with tan skin, you might say, hey, that's just what some guys prefer. It's a personal choice, which is exactly my point. But when a Filipina does it, why does it seem so underhanded? Because it's often got to do with money, and that just rubs people the wrong way. Relationships shouldn't have anything to do with money, right? Well, wake up and smell the coffee, fellas, because even good women gravitate towards a man with resources, at least to a certain point. You know the old saying, if you're gonna fall in love, why not fall in love with a rich guy?
Don't you know that a man being rich is like a girl being pretty? You might not marry a girl just because she's pretty, but my goodness, doesn't it help?
To a lot of Filipinas and their moms, that makes perfect sense. But does that mean we need to excuse women who go after men with money? It depends. And to get to the bottom of things, we need to look at the how and why. The why is easy. We can work our butts off and only make a few hundred pesos a day with very little chance of any upward mobility. It's really hard to change your situation in this country, especially if you start from literally nothing. But how is that different from Western women? They target more affluent men too, so why pin it on Filipinas? Because we're more blatant about it, and we're more blatant because we're more desperate. Western women have a lot more options, so they can hide their agendas longer, and sometimes they're not even aware they have them. So when a guy decides to come to the Philippines to find a mate because he believes the women here make better partners, is he targeting Filipinas? Of course not. If you have the intention of offering an honest relationship, you're just searching for the best chance of finding happiness in a stable relationship with a desirable woman, and you've decided that the Philippines is the place to look. So what's the difference between that and a woman who decides to date foreigners in order to create the safe and secure life that she wants? Most of you guys come here looking for real relationships. And the same thing is true for Filipinas. It's just that women find wealth attractive the way you find a nice pair of boobs attractive. Although you're in the wrong country if that's your thing. A woman is instinctively attracted to resources for herself and her offspring. So why wouldn't she be attracted to yours?
Have you got the nerve to stand there and expect me to believe that you don't want to marry my son for his money?
I want to marry him for your money.
And as you know, in the Philippines, it's not just about us. Most of us have a duty to provide for a whole bunch of other people too. So the pressure for security is a lot greater on a Filipina than it is for an average Western woman. But now that we've covered the why, we get to the how. How do Filipinas target foreigners? And it's about to get a lot more interesting. Let's look at the green card. One of my pet peeves is when someone says, all Filipinos just want a green card. Well, that's simply not true. In fact, in all the interviews I've done and all the women I've talked to, only about half want to leave the Philippines. So right off the bat, claiming that all Filipinos are just trying to get to the West is an obnoxious claim that's not backed up by reality. Now, some women do want a better life in the West, especially if they have kids or plan to have them in the future. They might want to raise them in a place with the best chance for a bright future. But so what? Would you want to raise your kids in Bangladesh? Well, neither would we. So we picked the best place we can get to.
If you had a daughter, you'd want her to have the most wonderful things in the world and to be very happy. Oh, why is it wrong for me to want those things?
But when a woman decides, before even meeting a man, that she wants to marry and get a green card, does that mean she's doing something immoral? Maybe, maybe not. If a man decides beforehand that he's only interested in finding a provincial woman and living in a rural area of the Philippines, is there anything wrong with that? Or is he just deciding what he wants and going for it? Isn't it a good thing to know what you want? Now let's say that a woman decides she wants a green card, but doesn't care what she has to say or do, no matter who she has to lie to or pretend to love, in order to get what she wants. She plans to get to the West, get that marriage contract, and turn it into a gold mine. Now that's an example of painting a big old bullseye on some unlucky guy's back, and that's what I call targeting. Because to me, targeting is all about intent. It's not so much what you want, but how you get it. Now let's consider the case of a Filipina who's dating a foreigner. She decides she really likes the guy and wants to solidify the relationship. She figures if she gets pregnant, he won't leave her like a local guy might. They're using condoms, but she tries to get pregnant by poking holes in them when he's not looking. Well, that's obviously targeting. But what if both of them were fully aware they weren't using any birth control, but they repeatedly had sex anyway? She was kind of hoping she might get pregnant, and the guy didn't care because he knew he'd just leave if she did and take off to Thailand. Aren't they guilty of targeting each other? What if the guy tells the Filipina he really loves her and promises to stay with her even if she does get pregnant, when in reality, he's trying to impregnate her so he can create an army of mini-me's all across the Philippines before pulling a disappearing act? And if that scenario sounds ludicrous to you, think again. I know of several instances where men were on a quest to spread their genes while having absolutely no intention of supporting their offspring. Is he targeting unsuspecting women? You bet. In all those scenarios, we're talking about a Filipina that wants to get pregnant. But if we just change the details, we go from naive stupidity to pure evil, because it's all about intent. Now, those are some drastic examples of targeting. But how about the more common type that starts out so innocently? What about a Filipina who's in a relationship with a foreigner and all she's trying to do is find a good man to love? But once her parents and family find out she's dating you, she's suddenly under incredible pressure to get whatever she can for the family. They start giving her a guilt trip and keep calling her, telling her what a horrible time they're having with the leak in the roof and the electric bill they can't pay. She might even start thinking to herself, how can I enjoy eating steak with my boyfriend when my family is out of rice? Well, there's 3 ways a Filipina can react to that situation. She can resist the pressure and hopefully tell you about it, so you know what's going on and you can work it out together. The second way is to give in to the pressure and start putting it on you to help her family financially. She didn't intend for this to happen, and she didn't target you for resource extraction. She's just making her problem your problem. But the final way that some Filipinas deal with the situation is they not only give in to the family pressure, but they get money out of you without you knowing it, usually by padding bills and coming up with extra expenses. The 80 bucks she says she spent on groceries was actually only 60, and the $20 surplus went straight to her mom. Is that dishonest? Of course. Despicable? Hell yeah. Is she targeting you? Well, she might not have planned to, but she's definitely using you now. And I hate to say it, but the last scenario happens all the time when Filipinas get caught in the crossfire between their conscience and a nagging mom. So what's the truth of the matter? Do Filipinas end up with foreigners because of the way they make us feel? Or do we target them for what we can get out of them? If a person has an opinion on this subject, he's probably had experience with this subject. People are shaped by their experiences. Everyone is. So if you've been burned, you talk about how horrible Filipinas are. If you met a quality Filipina that's been loyal to you, you have a different opinion. Just look at the comment section and you'll see half the people saying things like, I met the love of my life in the Philippines. We've been married 23 years and we're still in love. The other 50% says, Filipinos only want your cash. So who's lying? Who's telling the truth? Well, there is no black or white, right or wrong answer. There are good and bad people in every culture. Just keep looking till you find one of the keepers. And trust me, they're out there. So, do Filipinas target foreigners? Sure, many of us prefer foreigners. Is there anything wrong with that? It depends. Well, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and I'm looking forward to reading your opinions. Wanna blast a Filipina for the behavior you've witnessed? Be my guest. Wanna share your tale of undying love that you've discovered with a Filipina? I'd love to hear your story. Because by hearing both sides, it quickly becomes obvious that your experience becomes your reality. And everyone's is different. Till next time, folks.
Approaching Omicron standard orbit, Mr. Pater. Yes, sir.
Planet Omicron, Captain. Code 710.
Code 710 means under no circumstances are we to approach that planet. No circumstances whatsoever.
Omicron is home to a species of long-haired, tan-skinned, supposedly irresistible females called Filipinas.
Paradise. We're going in.
Captain, it might be prudent to first consult the video archives of the Filipina P to study their culture, their mating habits, and their propensity to separate men from their resources. Captain? Problems, Captain? Your visit lasted only 3.8 seconds.
A planet of traitors. Disloyal to the core. Rotten like the rest of you subhuman race.
You were conned. I did warn you, Jim. Now promise me you'll never fall for another what? Very wise, Captain. Preparing to leave orbit.
I can leave.
Captain's log, supplemental. The captain has inexplicably returned to the planet's surface. His final transmission was a hysterical, almost incoherent plea for millions of something called pesos.